Welcome.
Welcome
to the Grow People podcast. That is Pastor Jason right there, and he's healthy.
I can't wait to say welcome every time.
I know. And you're looking good. You look healthy, and you are ready to go.
By looking healthy, are you saying I've put on weight?
No.
Okay.
No, not in that sense. Not in that. If you're looking at that's a healthy animal.
Yeah.
No, I'm not saying that at all.
Yeah, because we're going to Africa. We'll talk about that a little bit, but over in Africa, if you tell a female she looks skinny, that is not a compliment. That means they're malnourished and not fed. So that's why I was going with it. If you're saying I'm healthy, that means I'm well fed.
I'm going to tell Leanna, you look malnourished.
It's an upside down world over here.
No, but you did have some health things going on.
Yes.
And you look bright and happy and pain free.
That's a much better way of saying it.
That's the way I meant it. But I didn't mean it that way.
I do feel normal.
Okay,
again.
good.
Yeah, I was able to preach our young adults and our middle to older adults in our gatherings this last weekend with no pain. So yes, I'm very glad for health.
Right before the gatherings last weekend, our stage manager said, "What do I do with the stool sample?" I don't think we're using the stool today.
No, we're good.
But I've gotten so many texts of folks that have been listening to the podcast and just dying
about
over the stool
one.
sample.
Yeah.
I'm still laughing at it.
Well, you are the king of well-placed, timely puns. Is that a pun?
I don't think it's a pun.
Or a statement?
I thought it was just something really funny.
It's very funny.
Yeah. And I thought of it by myself and was giggling on the way into work. so then I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
When can I use
this?
When
can I say this? Yeah.
My name is David Stein, and I'm the campus pastor in Canton. And the purpose of the Grow People podcast is to help grow people. It is Valentine's Day, the day we are recording this. It is the day of love.
The day of love.
Are you a good Valentine's husband, or do you have any? What I don't like the day personally. I'm not a big fan of the day. I think we're 365 Valentine's guys.
Yeah, if you ask my wife the same question that you just asked me, she would say, no, I'm not a good Valentine's Day husband. Because, and this is my wife and I have already had this conversation this morning and last night. My issue with Valentine's Day is, and I don't know the history of all the stuff. I'm sure somebody will tell us. But it is a made-up holiday.
Yes, of course.
And it's just for commercialism. And I had to go to Publix last night to get Lindsay some medication for our Africa trip, which between my health issues and us going to Africa, I'm sure my insurance company is like, are you guys running a drug ring on the side here? Because no doubt, between me, because Jackson's going on the trip with us, between the three of us and those meds and my meds and then Lindsay's meds, we've probably gotten 40 to 50 prescriptions in 2024. I'm not even exaggerating, because they would change medication
with the intent to distribute.
Yes, I mean, I don't know how we haven't. I'm sure we're flagged somewhere, but the FBI just hasn't contacted, or the DEA, or whoever that would fall under. But anyway, so I was at Publix again last night, and when I walked in, and I don't know, I'm assuming all of them are this way, but you know how they decorate the front of the store. So it was Super Bowl and that kind of stuff. But this one was a plethora of Valentine's Day stuff. All this portable tables and stuff. Like you couldn't even walk in. To the point where it makes you feel like a guilty person because you bypass it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I walk by and I look over, and there was no lie, probably 20 dudes standing around the table, all buying stuff and getting stuff. And I thought to myself, and I told this to Lindsay, you know what I didn't see? I didn't see one woman buying anything for Valentine's. And so I came home last night and was telling Lindsay that, and was just like, that's what's wrong with this holiday. It's the expectation that the man has to do something.
Unrealistic expectations.
Unrealistic.
Yes.
And then she quickly pointed out, she's like, well, that's because women have already bought it. Like they bought it.
It was bought on February 15th last year, stored in a closet and wrapped back after Christmas.
Yes. And I said, touche, I said, but I get it. Yes, typically women are better at that kind of stuff. I said, however, no, I still don't agree with you because women don't have to buy those things for the man because the woman is the Valentine's Day gift for the man.
That's gold. I'm writing that down.
I said, I don't need a heart-shaped thing. I want you, like you're my Valentine's. And so I try to, reinforce that point. Like example, this morning I got up early. I normally do, or earlier than Lindsay. So I was up about 6:30, go make coffee, pray. I was actually working on my message. And then I came back upstairs to get ready. And in our bedroom where our bed is, there's a window and the sun was shining in on Lindsay. And so I made a comment to her. I said, "Mate, babe, you look really beautiful. Like you're just laying there and the sun's shining in, like you're glowing, or something like that." And she chuckled and laughed and because she hasn't gotten out of bed yet, and hasn't put on her face. And so then I get ready, I come out, and then now she's up getting ready, and she goes, "Oh, happy Valentine's Day." Like almost like not a dig at me, but like I haven't said it yet. So she said it first.
Oh. Yeah, that's the worst.
Yeah. And I said, hold up. Maybe you said happy Valentine's Day first, but I complimented you like 45 minutes ago first, just out of the blue. You know what I mean? So that's me saying you're my Valentine's. And then 2 days ago, I'm not feeling like I have to justify myself here.
No, you're doing a great job justifying yourself, though.
2 days ago, I asked Lindsay, because I had bought her a gift to her favorite restaurant, and we were going to go over Christmas.
Okay.
Or our anniversary. I gave it to her for Christmas. But then I was sick and, so we didn't get to go. And I said, "Hey, I've got an appointment in Alpharetta at 3 today. I'll be done about 4:30. So if you want, we can go on Valentine's to your favorite restaurant. Let's go eat."
I didn't know there was a Buc-ee's in Alpharetta.
No, I wish there was.
Oh, her favorite.
Her favorite. Okay. Yeah, not my favorite. Her favorite. Yeah. Roomies at the Avalon.
Yeah, I figured that.
And so I was making a plan because I was like, I'm not going to go on Valentine's at 7:30.
Oh, no.
That's stupid.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. And so then she said, "Oh, I can't leave that early because, we're going to be gone next week." And so I said, "Well, I just want, I was planning something for Valentine's, but you couldn't do it, which is fine. We'll do it another day." So my point with all that is, I get it. Lindsay, and I'm sure every other woman on the planet, loves being thought. I actually had this conversation with a couple ladies on staff this morning because they were like, "Oh, why are you dressed up nice?" And I said, "Oh, I have to shoot a video later." And they were like, "Oh, you're not dressed up nice for Valentine's?" I'm like, "Why? Why would I do that?" And you and Chad are wearing all black, I guess, in protest to Valentine's.
Yeah.
Like it's the Day of the Dead over here.
Chad and I, for some reason, we don't, it's not really great odds that we're not going to be dressed alike because we only have gray, black, and tan in our closet.
Yes.
So Chad and I are going to be dressed alike,
typically
9 out of 10 times.
So again, I don't think, and I'm not trying to, if you're married and you like Valentine's or your spouse likes Valentine's, I'm not saying, like this isn't a Christian protest like against Halloween. No. This isn't that. You know what I mean? I'm just saying.
Can't believe you guys celebrate Halloween.
Yeah, it's not that. We're not that. So if you celebrate it, that's great. I'm not opposed to it. I just don't like the assumption that like we have to participate in this commercial thing.
Yeah.
To illustrate love, although it's not bad, and there's obviously definitely times to do that kind of stuff. But you should do it. Like for example, when I went to Publix last night, I was going to buy Lindsay fresh flowers because that's what she loves.
Okay.
She would much rather have fresh flowers than chocolate or something like that. So I was going to buy that, but we're leaving in 2 days.
Sure.
And we'll be gone for 10 days.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, they're just going to die.
Right.
So I didn't buy them. And that may have been a miscalculation on my part.
No, I don't. I don't think it was. I think the random fresh flowers on a day that doesn't have any meaning
totally
has way more meaning than if you go out. And look, pro tip: about 10 o'clock tonight, these stores are they're loaded with roses, and they're selling them for $6 a dozen.
Yeah. But then you feel like a loser.
Yeah.
If you're in there at that. So again, that's kind of my point. Like it's somehow, and I'm again, men could definitely be more romantic. I'm not.
Yes.
This isn't, a case to say men shouldn't be romantic. But when you walk into Publix and there's all dudes there and they're buying stuff, you know what I mean? It's just that kind of, I don't know, just that kind of protest in me. That it's like, I don't want to do it because everybody else is doing it.
Are you romancing your wife the other 364 days?
Yes. Or leap year 365.
Yeah. If we were doing a men's event, we would say, hey, pursue your spouse.
Yeah. Make good, like, again, make a comment, you know.
Be the first one on February 14th to say you look good.
You look good. Yeah. And not just that, but like, specific other things. Yeah. So again, if Lindsay were on here right now, which I'm sure she'll listen to this, she would probably disagree with me on some of this stuff.
And that's
I recognize that.
Yeah.
Because she doesn't feel the same way I do as far as just it's made up.
Yeah. We may get more comments on this podcast than any so far.
Than Spiritual Israel.
Yeah. And don't get me started on the Whitman Sampler. On
the what?
The Whitman Sampler.
Is that the candy?
The candy?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and at Halloween, they have it in a heart-shaped box. Oh, another pro tip, never buy holiday candy. So on Valentine's Day, get the regular candy boxes that are not Valentine's themed.
Why?
On Halloween, on Christmas, get the regular candy, not the Christmas themed, because what they don't sell, they send back and they store for the next year. No, true story. I know people in the candy industry.
Business?
Yes. Yeah. So, but I don't understand the Whitman Sampler because there's only 2 candies in there. There's only 2 chocolates that are any good in there. Yeah. There's the coconut one, and then there's the one that's like an almond joy.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And I don't understand how they're still in business.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of those for sure. Because I want to know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't need the thumbprint in the bottom to find out what's in there.
The thumbprint.
Speaking of candy, did you start taking your Malarone today?
No, I'll start tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Okay.
Well, because here's the thing.
All right.
And Lindsay and I just had this conversation with another person on our trip.
Okay. Not mascarpone. That's the candy.
No, that's the candy.
Malarone is the malaria medicine.
Malaria pills. Yeah. The trip is the 16th through the 26th. So even our prescription says start taking on Wednesday, but we're not actually in Africa till Saturday.
Okay.
So you have to take it 2 days before.
All right.
So you're not going to get malaria in Amsterdam.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
you might get something in Amsterdam.
So no, Lindsay and I will start Thursday because then that's 2 days before Saturday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not going to hurt you if you start today.
Did you read the side effects of Malarone?
Yeah, there's pretty trippy.
You might as well have malaria.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, there's really no protection against that. It's just protecting. I mean, obviously, if you take it, you have a less chance of getting it, but it's more diminishing its effects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am over medicated for this trip. I got every shot you could possibly get.
Yeah.
And I am not coming back with anything. So, and
yeah,
we
went all out on the shots.
Well, I did. We had this conversation. When I went to get my physical. I figured I'm going to go get a physical before I go to Kenya. And my doctor said, "Hey, have you gotten all the shots?" And I said, "Well, here's the list of what's required."
Yeah.
And he said, "There's also a list of recommended."
Yes.
And he starts rattling these off, and he gets down to yellow fever, and he goes, "That's a required one. You need to get that."
Yeah.
So I went up to Ellijay. They only give the yellow fever shot in Ellijay.
I don't know why the travel clinic is there.
I live a mile from the East Cherokee, from the Cherokee County Health Department, and they do all the other shots, but not.
I don't understand.
Not yellow fever. Yeah. So I go up there around Christmas, and I go to get the shot, and they said, "No, you're over 60." First of all, I was a little offended that they thought I was over 60, and they said, "If you're over 60. Here are the side effects."
Yeah.
And they run through them. And of course, they're the regular side effects that are pretty gross.
Yeah.
And then she goes, "And death." And so
I don't remember you telling me that.
Yeah. "Excuse me?"
Yeah.
She goes, yeah, there is a very, very slight chance of dying from the shot. And I said, "Well, what are the chances of dying from yellow fever?"
Yeah.
And she said 50-50. I said, "Okay, I'll take the risk. Give me the shot." But I had to go get another doctor's note
note
to come back and get the shot.
Yeah.
So then I go up just a couple of weeks ago to get it again, and I went with Jackson, your son, and we're on the way, and I'm telling him what the side effects of this are. He's like, nah, come on. So they put us in a room. The nurse comes in, looks at Jackson, 20 years old, healthy, fit. You're going to have no problem with this. She looks at me and she starts reading down the list.
Oh, again.
Yeah. And there's a chance you could die from the shot. Well, so anyway, I'm ready.
You're still here.
I'm still here. I am not coming back with anything.
Yeah. When you told me everything that you were doing, not that I got concerned, but I was like, I felt like you had gotten misinformed. Like, cause I thought you had to get all that. I'm like, no, David, you just need yellow fever and typhoid. That's what you need. Mm-hmm. The other ones, very slim chance, that you would get any of that. Yeah. And so I did get a little nervous because you were in a period of like a month, you were injecting your body with a lot of vaccines.
I had every side, well, except for the death. I had every
that we know of.
Every side effect you could possibly get from these shots because I was getting them 3 at a time.
Yeah.
I got polio, meningitis, and my last hepatitis at the same time. I thought I had meningitis that night.
Yeah.
It was but I don't want to be the guy going on a trip where the polio update, there's an update for the polio vaccine, which I had. Jonas Salk actually injected me with the polio vaccine. That's how old I am.
Is that the maker of it?
Yes, that's funny. I think they laughed over there.
I heard it. I hear them on the mic over there. Their mic is hot.
And when they told me there was a polio update, I said, "Is that recommended?" And she goes, "Well, I mean, yeah." So I got it.
Yeah.
I don't want to come back with polio.
No. But yeah, I was just like, because would you get like 7 or 8 vaccines difference?
I don't know how many.
So yeah, I was like, "Oh, David, you don't have to do all that."
Yeah, I could have gotten a tattoo with the number of needles. I should have gotten them all in the same. I could have gotten them in a pattern.
Could have, yeah.
Back to Valentine's Day. Before we're never get into the topic today, but back to Valentine's Day this morning. I woke up at 4. Mm-hmm. I'm actually really excited about going to Kenya. So didn't sleep well last night. So I got up at 4. I'm getting ready to come in here, do some stuff. And I didn't want to make noise.
Yeah.
So normally every morning, I don't even know if I've told you this, we got turned on over Christmas to the coffee maker called the percolator.
No, I don't think.
Are you familiar with a percolator?
I mean, the principle of it, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, old school.
Because it's like what you use at camping.
Yeah, old school rival plug-in percolator, 12 cups, big stainless thing.
Yeah.
Makes amazing coffee. It doesn't matter what you put in there. You can put in cow manure, Starbucks, whatever.
I might disagree with you there. But yeah.
Whatever you want to put in it, it tastes great. Rich, full diner coffee. So I make that every morning, but it's a noisy process.
Yeah.
So 4 o'clock in the morning, I didn't want to do that. I made myself a K-cup, and 7:30, Leanna wakes up.
Yeah.
7 o'clock, she wakes up. She goes, "It's Valentine's Day. You didn't make me coffee."
Oh,
the only day of the year that I haven't made coffee.
Yeah,
and so I'm like the worst Valentine's husband. Yeah. Okay.
I wouldn't say you're the worst, but yeah, you missed that one.
Yeah, I was traumatized as a child with Valentine's Day.
Yeah, again, that's what I mean. It just is like, and it starts early. Like you got to get these stupid. Yeah. Little things and packages, and will you be my Valentine's? But it's like, is that just for a day? Are we dating now?
Yeah,
like, I don't get it.
And then the one that I wanted to be my Valentine didn't want to be my Valentine, and I was 5 years old and traumatized, and my dad was a dentist and wouldn't let us eat the candy hearts. But I'm not bitter.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's just all the stuff that goes with it, those expectations and stuff. That's my issue. Yeah, I don't like being told.
Yeah,
that I have to do a relationship with certain, unless it's God.
We come under His authority, not Hallmark's authority.
That's true. Yeah, okay. That's a good way to say it.
All right, so this is a holiday where the world says it is about love, and that's what we want to get into today: the world's perspective of love and the Bible's perspective of love.
Yeah. I was going to say this prior to, but yeah, it's a day of love. Can you give us a
Barry White.
impression of with that good radio voice that you have.
I could, or Lou Rawls, or the only Barry White song I know is an instrumental from the Love Unlimited Orchestra.
Oh, not Let's Get It On?
No, I don't know that. I don't know that song.
Well, it's only 3 words. Let's get it. 4 words.
I am not actually going to say that on the podcast.
I mean, I've said it twice already, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm not saying that.
Yeah, no, you don't have to do that one. Or Vandross, or
Luther Vandross.
Oh,
yeah, from Philadelphia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So does he have a song that you
don't remember.
that you have?
No. Lou Rawls, You'll Never Find. And I don't remember the words, but that's how it goes.
See, that's what's funny. Like, speaking of Valentines, and this might be too much TMI, but like with a voice like that, I would think that Leanna would want you to like call and leave her a voicemail or something like
that. No, absolutely not.
Like, she would like that.
How you doing?
Yeah, exactly. Because I think guys that don't have that voice, like myself, or even ladies who listen to voices like that and think that that's sexy or something, I think that's what they would think that they would want. You know, it's like, if I had a spouse with a voice like that, I'd have him say it to me.
No, this voice puts people to sleep.
Yeah, whenever Leanna listens to this, she's going to be cracking up and saying, no, I don't want that at all.
She's like, I hear plenty of your voice.
That's right.
I don't need to hear any more.
I don't need you to do some kind of remake of Vandross or Barry White. Yeah.
Oh, my.
Actually, T.D. Jakes, Pastor T.D. Jakes, which this isn't an endorsement of everything he says.
No.
Although he's an incredible preacher, but he actually put out a love album once.
Right.
Yeah. Like I can't remember the name of it. But this was probably 15 or 20 years ago, probably. But yeah, he put out an album, and something about satin sheets and like.
Oh, that's gross.
Yeah. I mean,
that's
because he has one of those voices. And so he can sing. And so I just think about that. I was like, as a pastor, I couldn't do that.
Right.
But B, I could never get away with that. If I recorded an album like that, I might lose my job. You know,
that would be awful.
And it wasn't. I mean, it was from what I remember, it was tastefully done. Like, it wasn't. Crude and that kind of. I mean, obviously, it was in the context of married people, but I just remember, because I love R&B and I love. I love slow jam. I love that kind of music. It's just what I grew up on in my era. So I was actually quite impressed that he did that from the musical side. You know what I mean? But then again, thought, it's like, I could never do that.
I heard one time that he wears his suit only one time, and then he gets rid of it or gives it away.
Yeah.
So he wears a different suit every day.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, because guys that like suits like that, that's a thing. You know what I mean? And I don't saying that's good or bad. I'm just saying, like, guys that are really into fashion like that, yeah, it becomes like a thing of like, no, I've already worn that. And I don't know if it's because he's on national TV or whatever. So yeah,
I got one.
Yeah. Well, I just bought another one because I'm actually preaching at a church in Nairobi this weekend. I'm preaching here and Thursday, and then we'll be on video Sunday. So we're preaching. It's a rather large church in Nairobi, several thousand, well, probably 10 to 20,000 across multiple campuses. Wow. But at the one that I'm preaching at is a rather large, probably 3,000 or 4,000 people. And thankfully I can speak in English because they speak in English and Swahili. But a lot of their pastors will preach in English. But it's a very well-dressed church, which is like that in a lot of third world countries. In the church space, it is a lot more formal. So the suit that I have wasn't quite formal enough. Okay. So I had to go get me another one. Okay. And I was texting my buddy Leonce, who's a pastor here in Atlanta, who's a very well-dressed man typically. So we were talking about it this morning.
Former NFL player.
Former NFL player. Yeah. I would love for him. Actually, he was going to come speak at Abide this year, but he couldn't. So I was texting him about it. He's like, I got to see a picture, So he's kind of like that. He's always wearing well-dressed, nice suits, which again is cool. Like, I'm just not typically a suit guy because I don't like having to do the whole dry cleaning and messing with all that stuff. But, getting a nice suit, like I'm excited about it.
Awesome.
Because I don't preach in a suit typically. So yeah, I just got that and pack it up and take it with us, which is completely different than my normal Africa gear.
Yes. Yes. Is it a Columbia suit? What's the SPF on your suit?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, probably pretty good actually. So no, I've got Columbia clothes and then a really nice suit.
Right.
Like that's the juxtaposition of my life.
Yeah, I packed like 3 or 4 times already. I've been packing since November, and so
you and Lindsay.
So when you said, "Hey, we're going to a nice church," and it would be respectful for another pastor to wear a suit.
Yeah.
So I put mine out and then I folded it up and then I hung it back up just to see how wrinkled is it going to get after a couple of days, and so I think we'll be good.
Well, I literally YouTubed this morning how to pack a suit because I don't have a hanging bag that I'm taking.
Right.
So they said put it in the plastic bag and fold it one time, like in half one time, and then put it on top.
Oh,
so
that's a great idea.
So that's what I'm going to do.
Okay. Yeah. Excellent. We're 27 and a half minutes into the podcast, and we haven't gotten to what we want to talk about.
But we're having a lot of fun.
We are. We're having a blast. And all of this stuff, this is what people come up on a Sunday or text or send an email. Hey, remember when you said that?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, this is the sticky stuff.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to get into what the world says about love and what the Bible says about love.
Yes. Yeah, with this being the day of, I don't know if it's officially called the Day of Love, but it's definitely that emphasis. And we talked about this, over the last couple of weeks of like, hey, we're recording it on Valentines. This is a great opportunity to kind of bridge and have this conversation. To where love in our day and age, and even in the church world, the favorite quote of Christians, even in the Super Bowl ads, from the He Gets Us ads. And again, this isn't an endorsement or not of that, because some people liked them and some people didn't, but the idea of, Jesus is not about hate, he's about love. So everybody loves that, even non-Christians are intrigued by the idea. And I would say now, probably in our culture, I mean, maybe the most quoted verse is still, don't judge me, judge not lest you be judged. But I would say second, and probably now first, is 1 John 4, God is love. Right. People just love that verse because again, who doesn't love the idea of love?
Yeah.
And I get that. And I'm not saying, obviously that's in the Bible, and I'm not saying that that's not true, nor am I saying we shouldn't say it. However, right along with that, in our culture over the last 20, 30 years, really probably beginning in the 60s with the sexual revolution, that Hugh Hefner and others were really, really pushing. Our culture has, I was going to say grown, but I'm saying this as a negative, not as a positive.
GROAN.
Yeah. We have, our culture has moved past a biblical definition of love. We've progressed past it, which is the idea of progression, but not in a good way. To where now, and you've probably seen this in our culture, at stores, you've seen it in stickers, people say it, but they'll say a phrase, love is love. And that becomes like this tacit endorsement of love is a feeling. And who are you to tell me who I can love?
Right.
And basically what we're saying is we've dumbed it down to attraction. I have these feelings towards somebody. And so we're no longer a fact-based society. We're a feeling-based society.
Yeah.
And therefore we're no longer a moral absolute or absolute truth society, which means truth is something that a moral absolute means truth is something that God created and we discover it. It's a fix like gravity. I don't care how you feel about it. It's true. Well, we've moved love out of that realm into subjective
Yes.
reality, which is no, love is love. Well, if love is love, then what is love?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm defining love by itself,
Right.
that's like saying right is right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, but what's right
Yeah.
as opposed to wrong?
If you open up a dictionary, there are no words that are defined by itself.
No, because you can't.
Right.
You can't define something by itself. It has to be defined by some other person, or and what I mean by that is someone has to inject meaning into that. And what the Bible is doing in 1 John 4 is he's saying, when he says God is love, what he's saying is the meaning of love is injected by God. God is the one who, so we can't say love is love. We have to say God is love, which means the only way I can understand love is if I understand God, because God is the one that defines it. That's why John goes on to say, this is how we know love, because God first loved us. And so then you have to say, okay, well, if God is love and God loved us first, then love is something God not just is, it's something he did. And what he did helps me understand who he is. So he's a lover, and again, arguably the most famous verse, John 3:16, for God so loved the world.
Yeah.
Well, that is a great part, but I can't understand what it means that he loved the world until I look at the second part of the verse when he says, for God so loved the world, he gave his only son. So love is not love by that, self-defeating definition. Love is God. And then I look about who God is and what God did, and what did God do? He gave. He gave his son as a sacrifice. So love isn't a feeling. It's an action that's defined by the parameters of who God is and what God did.
I'll never forget going to a therapy session, and this is probably, 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was my therapist was the one who shared the gospel with me over the phone. And she asked me the question, do you know what love is? And of course, in my arrogance, of course I know what love is. And I began to describe it from a place of feelings.
Yeah.
And she said, what if, she's very kind. She said, what if I told you that everything you just said is not what love is? And, I had already trusted in Jesus, but was not equating those two things.
Yeah.
And then she said, remember what I told you on the day that you became a believer? And I said, yeah. She goes, that's love. And from then on, I was like, oh, wow. Love is seen at the cross.
Totally. Yeah, because love, we're not saying love is not a feeling in the sense of like, we're not saying love is just strictly emotionless. We're not saying that.
Right.
Because we are made in the image of God, and God has feelings because we have feelings. So God gets angry. God has love, or God feels love or compassion, if we want to say it like that. But what we're saying is our feelings, to what you just said, aren't the definition of love. We use our feelings to describe something, but that's not what it is. We're using emotional and emotive language to describe how we feel about what it is. And that's okay. Again, that's why I don't want people to think that, like, from a Christian perspective, it's wrong to somehow have feelings. It's not, because we see that in church too. Like, it doesn't matter how you feel; it just matters what you think. God didn't create us in this dichotomy that we're thinking and feeling, or facts and feelings are opposed to each other. But one does have to be submissive to the other. And the best way to think about this in terms of the phrase God is love, and again, I've said this before, but it's only twice that the Bible uses that phrase, both in John. But what the Bible says over and over 400 times, over and over again, in so many different books is God is holy.
Mm-hmm.
And the definition of holy is he's set apart, he's other.
Right.
He's completely different. So what we have to think about this is God is love, yes, but God is first and foremost holy. He's different. So what that means is it's not just love, it's a holy love.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's a love that is defined by God's holiness. So therefore, love is not just an expression of an action. It's an expression of a disposition too. Like God doesn't just, yes, God so loved the world that he gave. And so the act of giving is love, but why did he give? Because he's holy. So therefore, love by definition has to be defined by holiness. So we can't say love is love because we don't know what it is. Mm-hmm. But what we could say is love is holy sacrifice, or love is a set apart sacrifice.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? Like that's what love is. Because again, it's defined by who God is, and God is holy, and God is loving, or merciful, or gracious, or all those things. But his supreme characteristic is holiness. And so even like this last weekend, I talked about the, Ephesians 4:1, live lives worthy of the calling that, that's what Paul's urging them to do. And I said the word worthy there is the Greek word axios, which is, the same idea of like the standard or the axle on a car. And I said how the axle is the center and everything else rotates around that, and I just love that picture because anybody can understand it. Well, if you think about God, at the center of who God is not love. Mm-hmm. The center of who God is holiness.
Yes.
So the axle or the axis that defines God is holiness. Then love, God is love, but it circulates around his holiness. God is compassionate, it circulates around his holiness. God is righteous, it circulates around his. So the holiness of God is his supreme characteristic. Because he, again, by definition, holy means different. So therefore, anything that we want to ascribe to God, it's not just he's love, he's holy love. It's not just that he's gracious, he's holy gracious. It's not just that he's righteous, he's holy righteous. That's the thing that defines every other thing. So again, from that perspective, we have to we have to see that by definition, love is a reflection of who God is. Well, who is God? He's holy. And so therefore, that's what love is. Mm-hmm. And then we are to, and the Bible commands us, be holy as I am holy. And the Bible commands us to love our neighbor. Well, loving my neighbor, and this is, primarily what those the He Gets Us ads said, love your neighbor. Well, loving my neighbor, I don't get to define what that means.
Right.
Like if love is love, then how do I love my neighbor?
Sure.
I just say I love them. I'm not a jerk. Well, no, I love them in the way I was loved, which was in a holy way. So I love them like Jesus loved. I humble myself. I lift them up. I serve them. All of that.
That's the best definition of loving your neighbor I've ever heard. Because there's books written on how to love your neighbor.
Yeah.
But that was it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
You're going to love your neighbor not based on an emotion. You're going to love your neighbor based on how Jesus loved you.
Yeah. And that's what we're commanded to do.
Right.
We are commanded. That's why Jesus, as Colossians says, he's the visible image of the invisible God. So Jesus is God. The Father is God. Well, it's not until Jesus shows up that we see in a person the physical living out of this holy love. Mm-hmm. And how did Jesus do that? Mm-hmm. And again, this is where the culture gets us. So they love talking about how Jesus loved sinners. They love talking about, which he did. But then they miss, like, for example, the woman that was caught in adultery. Jesus, he doesn't condemn her. Mm-hmm. And he says that. No one here is to condemn you, neither do I. But then he doesn't condone her actions either. He says, go and sin no more. Mm-hmm. where our culture only gives the half definition.
Right.
They say, oh, you can't condemn people. Jesus didn't condemn people. You're right. He didn't. But you're not looking at a holy definition of love.
Sure.
A holy definition of love is, I'm not condemning you because Christ gave his life for you, but I'm not condoning your sin either because Christ gave his life for you.
Mm-hmm.
He gave his life to free you from this sin. So why would he then endorse it? So therefore, I cannot take love as it's my feeling that I get to marry who I want, have relationships with who I want. I get to take off the boundaries that God set in his word because he loves me and he wouldn't want me to
that's
feel,
the one.
Yes. Well, what? When the core of following Jesus is deny yourself, take up your cross and follow me. The idea that somehow Jesus would never ask you to deny something that feels natural to you is a complete misunderstanding of the gospel.
Yes.
A complete misunderstanding of holiness, of love. And it's not loving for me or Jesus ultimately, but in the words of Jesus, it's not loving for me to allow you to keep doing something that God strictly prohibits because somehow it would be wrong to ask you to feel like you have to deny yourself. Again, that's not love.
No.
Love is, I'm going to tell you, hey, here's holiness. You're not walking in holiness. I'm not going to condemn you for that, but you need to deny yourself, repent, and walk in holiness.
We deal with that all the time.
All the time.
Especially in pastoral care and premarital counseling.
Yes.
We're asking couples to deny themselves the act of being married prior to their marriage, not living together, not having sex, and let's move forward in talking about what marriage is and do the premarital counseling.
Yeah, because marriage, yes, and sadly, you deal with this more than I do, just in your role, but we have these conversations all the time. If two people can't deny their sexual urges, and we're talking about a man and a woman here,
Yep.
because by definition, marriage is man and woman. If a man and woman can't deny themselves, take up their cross in their dating life, then they won't do it in their married life. If they're letting their body hormones and their desire, which again, the desire to have sex is a godly desire. It's from God. But and we did this before, the entire purpose, the main purpose, I should say, of sex is procreation, not pleasure. So if I am engaging in sex before marriage, then I am engaging in the process of procreation. And now we live in a world of, birth control and all that kind of stuff. And again, this isn't we can do a whole conversation on that at another time. But the idea that I'm going to take birth control so I don't get pregnant before I get married is a complete upending of the created order, because the purpose of sex is procreation. We just happen to have a good God that made it pleasurable so that we keep doing it.
Right.
But again, that's because sex has to be defined by God's holiness.
Right.
He made it. And so therefore, love and sex and love are two different things. I mean, sex is a part of love or intimacy. But I can't do sex in a way that's not holy. Then I'm ungodly and I need to repent. So that's my point, is holiness has to be the lens through which we view everything. Love, loving my neighbor, loving my spouse, how I walk in a man. Holiness is my axis, is my axle. And everything in my life has to revolve around that. So my money has to be holy. My love has to be holy. My sex has all of that. That's the definition that defines all other things. But yet our culture, as Romans 1 says so clearly, written over 2,000 years ago, the main reason why people walk away from God is not because they don't believe in God, or some people do, of course, like they've studied it. There's no proof, that kind of stuff is what they think. The main reason why they walk away from God is they want to do what they want to do.
Of course.
That's what Romans 1 says.
And sadly, walk away from the church.
Yes.
There are people, and I don't mind saying this, and it's just being real, when we so gently and with so much grace talk about premarital sex, and you can repent and no harm, no foul.
Yeah. Ask
each other for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Ask God for forgiveness, and let's move forward. God forgets as far as the east is from the west.
Of course.
And we're good. We're all sinners.
Yes.
We all need to repent. I've had so many people walk away from the church thinking and say, even publicly, they judged me.
Oh, they've said it on our Google reviews.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. No. And I can't tell you how many times I say in those meetings, please, this is not judgment.
No.
You're coming to us asking for a blessing. You're doing something God's not blessing.
Yeah.
So let us at least care for you in a way that sets you up for the best chance of having a great marriage.
Yeah, and I know what I'm not gonna correct you in what I'm saying, because I just said when you said we're not judging you, but I want to. Terms are important.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And I know you know what I'm about to say.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We are judging them.
Yes.
And that's where again that other verse gets misquoted. We are judging them because we're called to.
Yes.
But we're not unloving.
No.
And that's where they interpret. If you tell me something,
right.
You tell me I can't do something that I want to do, you're not loving me.
Right.
No, we're loving you.
Yes.
And we are, it's less of like we're judging them, but we are making a judgment.
Yeah, good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So you're right. We're not just like trying to judge them, but we are loving them through communicating God's judgments,
right.
God's commands. And so, we are doing that. And yes, that doesn't feel good. Like no one likes being told I'm wrong or because we don't like feeling guilty or shame. Yeah. So I get the feeling, but yes, we're doing the most loving thing we can do. Again, those same two people, when they have kids later, they're going to do the same thing.
Right.
That's what makes them hypocrites. That's what makes us all hypocrites, because they make judgments. They tell people that's wrong. Well, hold up. Don't judge me.
Right.
Well, you can't live in a world without judgments. No one can live in a world like, get this, read the book of Judges in the Old Testament. What is the one reoccurring phrase in the book of Judges? You know what it is. It is this: the people did what was right in their own eyes.
Sure.
And that was the worst time for the nation of Israel, because no one was stating us. Judges are meant to judge, but they weren't judging. And here's the thing. I can either live under God's judgment now and repent and receive grace, or I can live under God's judgment eternity and not have the ability to repent and receive judgment.
Right.
So you choose. You're choosing judgment. And I think the thing that people don't like today, and again, and we don't say it this harshly, but this is true to those unmarried people that are doing that. Right now, you're sitting under the judgment of God, which puts you in danger of hell. So why would we tell you to keep doing that?
Yeah.
Why would we tell you to keep living in sin? We wouldn't. We can't, because we love your soul more than we love your bodies right now.
Yep.
And that's the part that no one likes to talk about, because we're like, well, how could a loving God, and we'll do an episode on hell. Right. How could a loving God send people to hell? He doesn't. They send themselves because they want to do what they want to do. Right. And that's what C.S. Lewis was so helpful to me about when it came to hell. Hell's locked from the inside. It's God gives the people in hell what they want, which is a life without him telling them what to do. And that's why it's hell. I'm not saying God's not judging them. I am. But what I'm saying is the judgment is, according to Romans 1, I'm going to give you over to what you want. And that's hell.
This is all so good. And the definition of love and the definition of what we just talked about, marriage, these are, you're being discipled right now. And this is why it is so important for your kids to come to students on Wednesday nights, if you're a young adult or you know young adults or you have young adults living in your house, to come to young adults now, first Sunday of every month. It is so important because if they're not discipled here, they're going to be discipled by the world. And the world doesn't talk the way we just talked for the last half hour.
No, the world is, they're being discipled. Yeah, that's not, they're being formed.
Yeah.
But they're just being misinformed.
Yes.
They're being malformed. And so, being in church and reading the word is being transformed. They're being lied to. And again, it's not like just because we have social media now that they're being lied to and we weren't being lied to when we were young. I mean, you grew up through the 60s. You were lied to. I grew up in the 80s. We were all lied to. Everybody. The devil's the father of lies, and that's what he does. Jesus says that's his native language. He lies. However, we do live in a world where the lies are more readily accessible, which is why, and I've said this on here many times, if you are a parent and you have a son or a daughter, even more so a daughter, and they are on social media at a young age, I think you're wrong. My son did not get on social media till he was 18. My daughter will not get on social media until she's 18 because I do not want those messages being reinforced into their mind every day. It's already hard enough to disciple them into the ways of Jesus. And so I'm just not going to put them on a platform, any platform, I don't care what it is, where they're getting those constant barrage of lies. I mean, we know so many studies have been done now how TikTok is shaping the philosophy and the existential thought process of teenagers. It's like in the Catholic Church, and I'm not trying to compare the Catholic Church to TikTok, but I'll never forget I had a friend who was Catholic in high school, and the Pope at that point in time came out and changed his position on something, and then my friend automatically changed his position on it just because the Pope said. Well, in the same way, and again, we can have another conversation about Catholics. I'm not saying, but in the same way, that's the role that TikTok is playing. TikTok's like the Pope. And whatever they see on TikTok, it is informing them, and they will change their mind on something because it's that mob mentality. It is sociologists call it a social contagion. It is infecting their mind, and that's all that it takes. And so they'll change on a dime because they so want to be a part of the culture. And we all want love. We all want relationships. And so they'll change their viewpoint. Well, I'm not going to do that. No, because love is philosophically stupid. It doesn't make a lick of sense. It's existentially stupid. It doesn't make any sense.
And it plays out in every aspect of our lives and every aspect of your kids' lives.
Yes.
And every aspect of what you do and what you endorse and what you say with your actions, even attending weddings.
Yes.
Which has been a pretty big hot button in the Christian world the last few weeks. A pastor that we all respect.
Amazing pastor.
And it had to be the third week that I was a believer. I show up at this church that I was invited to in California after I was saved, and it was Bel Air Presbyterian Church, this Hollywood mega church. And the first week, the guy says, guess it was the pastor. He goes, "Hey, I'm out of here for 3 months." And he went dooces, and that was it. And I was like, well, I don't know any other churches. I guess I'll go back next week.
Yeah.
Then the next week was Brennan Manning, who wrote Ragamuffin Gospel, and
great book.
He was amazing. I don't remember what he said. And then the following week was Alistair Begg, the guy we're going to talk about now.
Yeah.
And so I would listen to Alistair Begg on the radio in California when I was going in to do talk radio every night. So a lot of what I understood about God's word came from Alistair Begg, but he did say something recently that was very controversial.
Yeah, he did. And we were actually talking about this before the last podcast, but just didn't have a chance to
and
get
has
to
to
it.
do with love.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, he was counseling a grandmother that he didn't know, and she had a granddaughter that was going to marry a woman. And she was estranged from her granddaughter, and she wanted to, connect relationally. And so he came at it from the standpoint of compassion and trying to reestablish a relationship with her granddaughter, which I understand. But in so doing, he told her it was okay for her to attend the wedding but take her a gift. And she took her a Bible, which, giving a Bible is great. But then it blew up into this firestorm because he is a great, godly, Orthodox, Reformed Bible teacher. I mean, he's amazing. I wouldn't say there's hardly anything that he said that I can't endorse everything he said, clearly, but I never would have thought he would be in this conversation, is my point.
If you've ever seen the YouTube clip, Man on the Middle Cross, that's the guy we're talking about.
Yeah, he's a Scottish guy. And so I watched his response to his congregation, and he said that he did it and that he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't necessarily give the same advice all the time, but he did it in this one particular situation to help this grandmother try to connect relationally. And his idea was Jesus, reaching out, friend of sinners, which I get that. Mm-hmm. And so his counsel to give her about reestablishing a relationship, 100% agree with. Personally, where what we've discussed, and we would not give this counsel, so I want to be clear, is I would not tell someone to attend a marriage ceremony, a wedding of a same-sex couple. And I've had this conversation with, and we've had this conversation with people in our church. And here's why. It may feel unloving to do that, and I get it. But here's what you need to understand. By definition, marriage, let's take the same thing I just said, has to be defined from holiness. So therefore, marriage is God's creation, which in our country, because our country was a Christian country in the sense that the Bible informed it more than anything else, and that's what was celebrated. So it was the culture. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean every founding father was Christian, but it doesn't mean they didn't believe in people had to be a Christian to be American, but it definitely was. And so therefore, our country forever accepted God's definition. And until, in 2015 or 2017, whenever it was, when the Defense of Marriage Act went away and the Supreme Court said, we're not going to define it. So then what happened was, now in our country, it's not that same-sex marriage was legalized in that sense. It's the court said, we're not going to define marriage. We're not going to say it's between a man and a woman. So therefore, by default, a man and a woman can get married in the eyes of the government, in the eyes of the law. But as Christians, we don't go by that definition. So my response to that is a man and a woman, that's not a marriage that you're going to.
Right.
And what most people don't understand is when they go to a marriage, they are actually witnesses to a legal document. Mm-hmm. This is why if you've ever gone to a marriage before, and this doesn't happen as much anymore, but most people traditionally in the wedding ceremony would say, before I pronounce you husband and wife, is there anyone here that would object to this? The reason why they did that is because that crowd is acting as a legal witness to this covenant that is going to be signed, and it's a legally binding document.
That's right.
So they're the witnesses. So by their attendance of that wedding, they are now legally a part of the signing of that, saying we witnessed this happen, and they're endorsing it. Mm-hmm. So unless you plan to go to the wedding and protest it and say no, then I would say don't attend.
Which would probably be unwise.
That would also, that would not be good because you can protest it in other ways. So well-meaning Christians, and I think Alistair Begg, again, it feels wrong to even criticize him, but that's the one thing I would say differently. That's what I would have said to the grandmother and said, listen, get her a gift, love, and tell her, say, hey, I love you, but I can't endorse that. Mm-hmm. And so my loyalty to Christ is higher. That's why I do. And I had a pastor years ago, he pastored in DC, and he actually was, even though he didn't believe at the time same-sex relationships was biblical, he said he didn't have a problem with same-sex marriage. And here was his argument. He said, well, as Christians, we don't protest when two non-Christians get married, when two people who are Satanists or atheists get married. I said, no, because even though they're non-Christians, it's a non-Christian marriage still. If it's a man and a woman, it's still a marriage by definition. They're just not Christians. So no, I wouldn't protest that. And I would attend that. I would attend a wedding of a man and a woman that were non-Christians, because my appearance at that wedding is endorsing as a witness saying that is a marriage. Even though they are not Christians, that's okay. But to attend a wedding of a man and a woman of a woman is me endorsing that is a marriage. And it's not, according to the biblical standard. So that's why I wouldn't counsel somebody to attend.
And unfortunately, this is something that not every church stands on.
No.
And there have been recent conferences where churches have put on a stage speakers who are in a same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
And so they are endorsing that is a wedding.
Yes.
And one of the things about Revolution Church that attracts people is the truth of the word. And it's a conversation that I have every single week, whether it's with a first-time guest on Sunday afternoon when I'm at home and I'm calling our first-time guests, or it's in the stewardship class, or it's in the lobby, or somebody sends an email, hey, I want to meet with you. Invariably, because of the culture we live in today and churches in our area.
Yeah, this is a local context issue.
Yeah. Churches in our area that are either extremely vague about this or not preaching the truth about this. We have to answer that question.
We do.
And the question is, hey, where do you guys stand on sex, marriage, and gender? That's why we put on our website a paragraph under what we believe, sex, marriage, and gender.
Yes.
So
yeah, because clarity is kindness. Yes, and that's what we're saying. And we're not on here to bash another church.
No.
But we are here to be clear.
Yeah.
And yes, it is a very slippery slope when a pastor or a church may not explicitly endorse an unbiblical lifestyle, but implicitly give the intention or unintentionally give the impression that, but you're not going to call it sin though, or you're not. So maybe you're not over here saying it's okay, but you are allowing it.
Yes, that's more of where I was going.
And you have people on your staff that have written books saying it's okay. And then you have people speaking at your conferences that are in a same-sex, quote unquote, marriage. So that is an endorsement of it, and that's where it's not kind to be unclear. Because the moment I start to say, and this is why I say it's a slippery slope, the moment I start to say, okay, the Bible no longer gets to set the standard for holiness in marriage, then I'm one step away from saying, well, the Bible doesn't get the standard. If the Bible's wrong about that, then the Bible doesn't get to set the standard on this, holiness for this. Doesn't get to set and then the moment that you take that one step away, and I'm telling you, and this is sad, it's only a matter of time before, and I've seen this happen I can't say emphatically it happens 100% of the time, but it happens more often than not. It's only a matter of time before they start to say, well, the Bible's not the authoritative word of God. Jesus isn't the only way to salvation. They become universalist. And that's a step in that direction.
Yeah, and you've all seen clips on social media of universalist pastors.
Yeah.
And what they say is ludicrous.
Yes. And here's why I said earlier that philosophy is, and I'm not being mean, that philosophy or that way of thinking about the world is dumb, is because people that step away from the Bible in that definition of marriage, they still have standards. They wouldn't say that a 40-year-old man should be able to marry a 14-year-old boy.
Right.
Well, why not though? Well, because they're a minor. Well, so you have a standard. So don't blame us for us having a standard unless you're going to blame yourself for you having a standard. So you have a standard. And that's the weird thing about our culture is, people love to talk about, today, this decolonization and deconstruction and all this stuff that higher education has just been infected with as if it's somehow wrong.
And there's no shot for that.
No,
that's a callback.
Yeah. the idea, and again, I'm not talking about, definitely every society in the history of the world has conquered some other society and enforced their beliefs on them. Mm-hmm. Everybody has done that. It's not unique to white people or European people or whatever. Every culture and every planet that's ever existed has done that. But the irony of that is that's exactly what our culture is doing to Christians. They're trying to colonize us into believing the way they believe and have the standards that they have when we have the standards that are defined by the Bible. So you can't call us judgmental or bigots or whatever if we have standards, because you have them too. Mm-hmm. But their standards isn't based upon a holiness outside of themselves. It's based upon a feeling inside themselves. And we're just not willing to capitulate to that in any area, because God is the one who gets to create the standards, because he's the one who created us. Therefore, holiness has to be the standard by which we define everything, love included.
And that wraps up in a bow exactly what we were talking about for the last 40 minutes. Yeah. For the first 27 minutes, we were just having fun. And look, I've said this before on the podcast. I've probably shared it from stage. I know I'm a pastor here, but I'm also a steward. Mm-hmm. And at one time, I was an attendee.
Yeah.
And when Leanne and I first started coming here, you were preaching a verse, and you stopped. And I've said this before. You walked out to the end of the stage. You held up your Bible and said, "I will shut these doors before I compromise this word." Mm-hmm. And that's what's attractive about this church. Mm-hmm. And that's what should be attractive about every church.
Yeah. That's what's attractive about God.
Mm-hmm. And if you find a church that preaches the word like that, not in a self-righteous way, but in a truth way, mm-hmm. then you found a church that you can grow in.
Yeah, because the only thing worse than a church shutting down is a church staying open and lying. Mm. Or not saying the whole truth out of this weird, twisted sense of love. Mm-hmm. That's my point. And so I'm not loving, just like I'm not loving my kids if I let my kids create their own standards.
Right.
They would have no teeth because they ate candy all day. You know what I mean? And they would die of diabetes at 23.
Bringing it back to full circle,
exactly.
the Whitman Sampler.
The Whitman Sampler. There you go. That's why Valentines is dumb.
All right. Okay. Excellent. We are going to be in Kenya. And we're so excited about this trip. 5 Revolution churches now.
Yes. We'll be dedicating the 5th one.
And when I tell people, and this is what's really starting to get me emotional. And I don't know if I can do it without being emotional. We're going to dig a hole in the sand, mm-hmm. and we're going to put a tarp in it, and then it's going to be a truck filled with water, mm-hmm. and they're going to fill up that hole, and we're going to baptize some people.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, this has been the Grow People podcast for today. For a transcript of the show, if you're not watching on YouTube, write down everything we say. Our producer, Brian Damerow, our video technician, Neon Keon Sadiji, our new guy who is the videographer who did an amazing job on the Abide video.
Yes, he did.
And we're so thankful that Marcos is here. Our key grip, Jakub Puszczykowski. Our head of doctrine and theology is theologian. She would have enjoyed today's show. Our chief evangelist, if she existed, our chief evangelist is Salvation.
Her name is Theo?
Theologian.
Oh, Thea. I've gotten this whole... I thought it was theologian.
Read our statement on sex, gender, and... Theologian.
But it doesn't have an A in it.
I know. Because who says theologian?
Normal people?
Theologian.
Listen, David, you don't get to say it how you want.
Well played. Our chief evangelist is Salvation. Real name Salvatore. Our backsliding prevention officer is Lukewarm. Our Swedish witnessing expert is Bjorn again. Our expert on Russian eschatology is Pitof Hell. Our director of holiness is Mortification. Our staff counselor, very busy these days, Les Moody.
I'm looking forward to the day when he or she is less moody. Is not busy, sorry.
Yes. Our giving coordinator is generosity. Our nativity coordinator from France is Bethlehem. Our co-pastors of Plagues, Manny Locust, and Lance Boyles. Our Irish eschatology professor is Marco the Beast. I do have a Scottish one today.
Okay, good.
For our church plant in Scotland. Our director of communications is Bernie Bush. Our sabbatical director is Trip Long. Our missional expert is Sam Area. Sam Area. Our director of marriage studies from Romania, Shizma Betterhoff. Shizma Betterhoff. Strategist for the final batter.
I love that final batter.
I do.
I want to lick I want the bowl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you a Waffle House guy?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you like your waffle? Crisp?
I was going to say cooked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They never do it crisp enough for me.
Yeah, I like it crisp.
Yeah. I want no batter.
Yeah.
No batter. I want it like a cookie.
Yeah.
Like a pizzelle. Are you familiar with a pizzelle?
No.
Okay.
Not familiar with most references you make.
Our resident Trinitarian is Holly Spirit. Our strategist for the... I already did that one. Our resident sheep tender works only in December. Nathaniel Ivity. Nativity. Our director of doctrinal security is Harry C. Our resident prayer warriors kneel down, and here we go. Our Scottish church planting resident and fast food expert.
Oh, wow. That's a title right there.
I struggled on this one.
Yeah.
Big Macintosh. That's who it is, from the Clan Macintosh in Scotland. That's a Scottish reference there. Best advice we've ever given, and the only advice you need.
Trust God, take it now.
We'll see you when we get back from Kenya.
That's right.